This is an ideal city design, ideal for walkability, wellness, flow of transportation, access to public services, while also increasing or maximizing the freedom that folks will have in designated areas to develop as they see fit. It's also a great design for allowing let me just go through a couple of the elements now. So this is Newsun, population 300,000. Newsun is on the ocean here, and you'll notice that the green is any kind of open space, the white lines are roads, the purple is public development, the yellow is private development, and blue is the waterways. Starting with the waterways, you have a reservoir, and you design so that you look at the 1,000-year flood, and you ensure that there's going to be flow and capacity to handle the waters for a 1,000-year flood, and that will save you a lot of money right up front. The other thing I was going to say is like cost effectiveness. This is a super efficient, cost-effective design. And I'll address one other thing. You could look at this, idea of making an ideal city, and you can say, well, that's never going to happen. We're not, especially cities in America, it's not like you can start over. You have to work with what you've got. And that is true. But I think that you have to have an image of an ideal, and then you can take elements of this and fit them in when it's time to retrofit or when it's time to develop. Starting to implement some of these strategies can be really, really important, and it will be piece by piece. It's not like you're going to start over in a lot of cases, but you have to have a framework to work toward, and that's what I'm thinking about here. Okay, so private. Let's talk about the roadway actually next. So you can see a white line that's thicker. This is like the freeway here. Okay, so if you wanted to just go through the city from here, from east to west, you would follow that route, and there's also an exit to the north. A couple things to notice about this roadway. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different points where you can enter the city. Oh, there's 8 actually. 8 different points that you can enter the city, or off-ramps into the city. The spacing of these is really important. Now, you can't have too many of these, but you don't want to have too few of them either. You have to find the balance. And you can kind of see a circular shape at each of these points, and these are roundabouts. So there's a roundabout to get in, onto or off of that freeway into the city. If I were to zoom in on this, a really great design would be if you have one lane on either side that does not intersect with the roundabout. It just goes straight over or under. But then there's, every time you approach a roundabout, there's 1 or 2 lanes that shoot off on either end, conjoin into a roundabout. The roundabout also intersecting with a road that is going to get you into the city, off of the highway. All right? And then now looking at the roadway design in the city, what you will see is there's like all these kind of like circular shapes. And I should have talked about the greenways first, but I'll talk about that in just a moment. Because the greenways are surrounding all of these little circular areas. So there's like these little neighborhoods throughout the city that have a similar design, but there is variation in it as well. So each neighborhood has at least one intersection with the highway, and then when you get in, you will go around a series of circles essentially, and then there's outlets that will connect you to each of your neighboring neighborhoods. And in the middle you have one circle, and then there's no more intersections in that middle circle for most of these neighborhoods in their design, while the roads that intersect with the freeway or connect with other neighborhoods, that road takes you right into the center. So some of the ideas here, again, you want to minimize, or maximize your spacing of your intersections. Not too many and not too few, in order to maximize the flow. And whenever possible here, any intersection with these inner city roads will come at a roundabout, because they flow so much better. Don't need stop signs, they're cheaper. So it's kind of a no-brainer, really. So now talking about the green spaces, the open spaces, you would actually design the roadways around the green spaces. Design the green spaces first, roadways second. Look at this. Well, first of all, the green space all around the outside, and this is where you can concentrate on perhaps farming activities, but there's any number of spaces, there's any number of activities that can happen here. And I'll say that each neighborhood should have the ability to make some of these decisions. So the general plan is going to outline what kind of activities can happen, what categories of activities can happen in these places, and the stipulations on that. But once that plan is set, then it's up to the city to decide as a whole on some decisions that cross neighborhoods. But if it's something that's happening within a neighborhood, that neighborhood should have the democratic ability, the residents there and the people who work there should have the ability to decide how those spaces are used. Okay, so it's really empowering people too. It's not just like a structural design. It has political implications as well. So they can decide the spaces, the green spaces, the public spaces, and the private spaces, what specific uses are those areas used for. It's up to the neighborhood to decide. Okay, but it's really important to have first this initial design of greenways. Look at this. You can get anywhere in the city, and so the greenways have one element for sure, which is a path. So the path never intersects. You can see the green and the white lines are intersecting here, but what you would see here is a pedestrian overpass, or the roadway would go over the top of the greenway. So there's no direct intersection. You don't have to pull up and stop at a four-way stop and press the button and wait for the thing to start. You don't have to do that. You can just go right over the tunnel. And so it's way safer and makes the city far more walkable, and because it's a design that prioritizes the pedestrian as opposed to what most American cities prioritize, the vehicle. So you can get anywhere. Look at this. I can walk all the way to the top of the city. I can walk around. I can go along the ocean here. Okay, imagine this for a minute. Imagine if you lived in a city like this. It would be so sweet. And then, so this part here, I have another expanded place for a park. And parks, or the green spaces, all around the major roadways, there's a park on the outside on either side of the roadway, which is going to minimize the contact that people have with the toxins released by the cars and the fumes. So an environmental strategy that it can be hugely impactful. And you also green spaces all along the water, which is part of your strategy to plan for a 1,000-year flood. Give it a little bit more space to expand, and it wouldn't destroy buildings. And yeah, that would be a fantastic. Oh, and then no matter where you are in the city, you have pretty much equal access to the open spaces. So there's no point in the city where you would walk more than a mile to get to like an open space park. So this is just a fantastic design. And now I talked about the private development. Now I want to talk about the public part of it, which is in purple here. So in the middle of each neighborhood, in that middle circle, this is the area that is designated for the development of public use facilities. I've also put a little line anywhere, right next to where the freeway intersects with the inner city road. I also, in the four corners around that, I designated some spaces for public use. And the ones next to the roadway, these would be better for public services that might be like dealing with garbage or trash, public works, anything that's going to be a little bit more like environmentally toxic perhaps. I would put those here, but things like hospitals, schools, other social services, these activities would happen in the middle. And you'll notice this as well, both for the public design, which the plan would not determine at all what happens in these yellow spaces. That's for the people to privately develop on their own. But what would be suggested is this kind of design that would be implemented in the public space. Imagine that this is one continuous building. It's somewhat like a mall. It's like one long strip, and it has these little offshoots. So here I'm maximizing the space, really. And what this would do, you can imagine in this neighborhood, most of your public services, police, fire, high school, middle school, public housing, go down the line and think of a social service, the governing buildings, the neighborhood governing buildings, they would be right in here. So all of those social services are connected. Daycare. So that way, I've talked about this in another video, but the general idea is that you're housing all of these public activities in one area. And look how the other aspect of it is that it's fully accessible no matter where you live in the city. You are really close to your school. You're really close to the fire department, the police department. So spatially, this is a spatial strategy to increase or maximize access. Okay? So I can continue to fantasize all I want, but I'm hoping that other people are thinking about this, working on this, and if you are looking for somebody to connect with, if you're interested in this stuff, I'd love to connect with you, because I think there are some really important strategies that we can start to implement. We can start to implement some of these ideas, but there needs to be more awareness that there can be such a comprehensive strategy. Thanks for tuning in.